recently I've been reading this book, and essentially it's this leadership book. And I get into, I got into this portion of, building teams, so on and so forth. And it got into started talking about building your superpowers. And essentially, superpowers are, what are your gifts? Like, what are the things that you have a natural affinity for, right? Stuff that, you essentially, you don't need to strive to maybe be really good at, or, something that you just think you do really, really well. And I think sometimes this is something that we really don't process, or we will really even overlook. Because what I love in the book, he's even super clear as like, hey, like, be honest, be bold about it. Like, don't think you're prideful just because you're thinking about what are the things that you are really good at. And I think that's something that I really used to think like before, is like, oh, I don't want to be prideful, so I don't really think about what I'm necessarily good at. I don't really think about what I do really well that maybe is, even better than some of the people around me. And then I really started to really understand what being humble and being prideful is. Like, being prideful, right, but it's thinking you're something that you're not. And there can be, being prideful, you can be prideful in the way that is, you're thinking way better than you really are, right? According to Romans 12, right? That is a version of pride, thinking of yourself highly than you should. And then there's also a version of pride that you think you are way less and way worse than you are, right? Because I think what pride truly is where you are oftentimes so consumed with yourself that you're all so focused on yourself that you think you are something that you're not, whether it be something really high or something that is really low. And so to be humble, which means to be humble, it's not thinking of yourself less, but thinking of yourself rightly. And sometimes we only look at the aspect of thinking of ourselves rightly when we are diminishing ourselves, right? Or saying things that we're not that good at. We're saying things that we need to work on. But what about the times when it's to identify, that what is our superpowers? And that even aligns with kind of where I've been at lately. I dropped a video on, finding your purpose, finding your calling. And I think kind of that question of finding what is your superpower, it really does line up with like, the things that I delight in, that God has allowed me to delight in, or how am I naturally wired? And I've even started to answer those questions for myself, right? I think, for me, my superpowers, like I've really understood, like I have the ability to take, maybe very complex or very deep things and explain them in a way for people to easily understand. I think I have almost an example or an analogy for anything in life, from some type of movie, some type of TV show, music, book, whatever, right? Pop culture reference, whatever. And then I think like my creativity, I think I'm just in a directorial sense, not even just in what I'm able to make with my hands, right? But I even think in this concept of how my brain processes. I was sharing the other day, like I think like my teaching flows with like my creativity. Like when I'm writing, teachings or writing sermons or writing courses or doing the Bible study or whatever, like how it's pieced together in my mind, how, the words go on the page or I type them up, like that. I feel like that's a level of my creativity coming forth and it's just being, manifested in a certain type of way. But I think a big thing is identifying within ourselves, like what are your superpowers? What are the things that you are really good at? Because I believe every person has something, right? As we're driving up to up and over to Indiana, we're kind of going through Romans 12, right? In Romans 12, it essentially, right, in the beginning of Romans 12, Paul talks about, that we must offer our bodies as a living and holy sacrifice that God will find acceptable, right? And this will be our worship to him. And what I love about the Bible is sometimes, right, and this is a verse we hear all the time, like, especially in, Pentecostal churches, right? It's a verse we hear all the time. But what I love about the Bible is that with those one verses, there's so much more being added to that. And essentially, Romans chapter 12 Paul, in a way, it poses a question on how do we offer our bodies to God as a living and acceptable and holy sacrifice, right? How do we do that properly? And Romans 12 explains it, right? Is one, not to think of ourselves highly than we should, and to properly, it says to properly examine ourselves, right? To properly examine ourselves with the measure of faith that God has given us. And then it goes through and explains, right? Just as our own body has parts, and each part has a function. It's the same with the body of Christ. That every person is a part, and each person has their own function. And this is the crazy part. Then it says that our bodies belong to each other, or that we belong to each other. And so essentially what this is saying is that, God has given us, and then it goes into, right, that God has given us gifts, and it goes into like the gift of teaching, the gift of generosity, the gift of leadership, right, the giftness of kindness or mercy, right, the giftness of whatever else, other ones, I believe it's like hospitality or something, right, and these specific gifts that everybody has. And so what are the purpose of these gifts? The purpose of these gifts is to help them live a life, to offer our bodies and live a life that is a living sacrifice to him. And then we are able to edify the church, right? We're to edify God's people. And this one, people go on this thing where they want to use their gifts for everything but the church. They want to use their gifts for everything but the body of Christ. But the Bible is pretty clear that that's what the gifts are meant for, right? One, to worship God, but two is to edify the people of God, right? The teaching is to edify the people of God, right? For the equipping of saints, right? For the people to understand and know the word. Generosity, right? To see churches be built and established, to see missionaries go forth to preach the gospel. Like, that was the purpose of that's the purpose of the gifts, is to edify Christ's body, edify the body, right? So we can all move in a functioning way to see his purpose and will, him as in God, see his purpose and will be done here on earth. And so we have to identify, right? There's many words for these things, but right now we're calling them superpowers. Like, what is your superpower? What are you great at? What do you do well? And once you identify that, right, Romans 12, once you properly examine yourself, man, how can you take that and how can you use that to see God's mission go forth, and then to see the body be edified, to see God's people be edified? I think that's what we are here to do, right? We are here to see the gospel go forth, to see his kingdom advance, and to edify the people of God. Right? We are meant to, and that I think is an overglossed part of Romans is the latter half, where it tells us how do we function within our new community, how do we function properly within the body of Christ. But yeah, I think my challenge for you guys is, man, identify your superpowers.